I'm going to read from M.S. Sloan, 38, Janua, Magica, Reserata, the thing that all modern magical books skip over. So let's see how much space my phone has here. I might have to break it into parts. So let's begin. This is what all magicians should know and strive for. The most incomprehensible and abundant God, framed so images like unto himself, and they are the world and man, that in one of these might be delighted to behold all his greatly various, manifold, admirable, and wonderful works of the creation and operation, and in the other be glorified, who, being he is one, he had created a world one, single, and infinite, had created a world surrounds, seeing he is eternal, had created a world immovable, seeing he is immense, had created the world greatest of all things, seeing he is the chiefest life. He had adorned his world with vital goods, begetting all things out of himself, and seeing he is the omnipotent, by his will alone, had created a world out of nothing, and seeing he is the chief of goodness, embracing his word, which is the idea of all things. With his choices and essential love, he had fabricated his eternal world, after the example of the internal or ideal world, sending forth nothing of the essence of the idea, but created of nothing that which he had from the eternity of the idea. He created man also after his own image, for as the world is the image of God, so man is the image of the world. We must observe this, by the way, that man is not created simply the image of God, but after the image, or the image of the image. Therefore he is called microcosm, or the lesser world. Now the true image of God is his words, the wisdom, light, life, and truth, existing by himself, of which image man's soul is the image. Therefore we are said to be made as for the image of God, nor the images of the world or of the creature. For as God cannot be touched nor perceived by the ears, nor seen with the eyes, so the soul of man can be neither seen, heard, nor touched, and as God himself is infinite and cannot be compelled by any, so also the mind of man is free and cannot be enforced or bounded. As God comprehended this whole world, and whereas God is in it in his mind alone, so the mind of man comprehends it even in thought. And as God moveth and governeth all this world by his book alone, so man of times ruleth and governeth his body. Therefore man is called the other world, and his other image of God, because he hath in himself all that is contained in the greater world, so that there remaineth nothing which is not found, even truly and really in man, himself performing the same duties in him as in the greater world. There are in man the four elements, with the most true properties of their natures, and also an ethereal body, likewise the chariot of the soul, in proportion corresponding to the heaven. There are in him the vegetative life of plants, the senses of animals, angelical reason, divine understanding, and the true conjunction and divine possession of all these things, flowing together into one, wherefore we may truly say that man is called every creature, not only as being made another world, that he comprehends all the parts thereof in himself, but also doth receive and contain even God himself, as St. Paul clearly expresses, saying, "You are the temple of God." Hence it is not absurd, unjust, or a testicle tenet, nor anyways unbecoming a tenet, and say that man is the most express image of God, seeing he containeth in himself all things which are in God. But note, by a certain eminence containeth all things by his power, and he hath given his power to man, that he should like in manner contain all things. But it is by a certain act and composition as the bond, tie and knot of all things. Therefore man only rejoices in dishonour, that he hath a similitude with all, operations with all, and conversations with all. His symbol is set with a matter in a proper subject, with the elements in a fourfold body, with plants in a fourfold virtue, with animals in a sensitive faculty, with the heavens in an ethereal spirit, and in flux of the superior parts in the inferior, with the angels in wisdom and understanding, with God in containing all things. He preserved God and the intelligences by faith and wisdom, with the heavens and heavenly things by reason and discourse, with all inferior things by sense and dominion, and acted with all, and hath power on all, even on God himself by knowing and loving him. As God knoweth all things, so man also know all things intelligible, seeing hath for an adequate object else in general or truth itself. Neither is there any disposition nor thing found in man in which something of divinity may not shine forth. Neither is there anything in God which may not also be presented in man. Whosoever therefore shall know himself shall know all things in himself, and more especially he shall know God, according to his image he was made. He shall know the world, the resemblance of which he had beareth, and he shall know all creatures which he symbolizeth, and obtain all the senses and fruits, and understanding that can be had from angels, spirit, heavens, elements, animals, plants, stones, and whatsoever else, and how all things may be fixed for all and every purpose or purposes, in and according to their time placed order, measure, and proportion and harmony. By how much more every one shall know himself, by so much he obtaineth the greater power of attracting the like qualities and virtues, and likewise operated greater and more wonderful things, and by consequence and cause gradually ascend to so great perfection, that he is made the Son of God, and is transformed into that image which is God, and is united with him, a gift that is not granted to angels, the world, or any creature, but to man only. Thus man, having power to be made the Son of God, and to be united to God, all things which are in man are united also, and especially his mind, then his spirit, then his animal powers, and then his vegetative faculties. And this dignity of the divine image in the proper and peculiar gift to man, and common to no other creature. There are three things placed in a man, thus distinguished according to their respective division, parts, and qualities: the supreme, the lowest, and the middle. The supreme is that divine thing which is called the mind, or superior portion, or illuminated intellect. Also calleth it the breath of life, breath from God, or spirit inspired into us. The lowest, the sensitive soul, which is also called an image. St. Paul nameth it the animal man. The middle is the rational spirit, knitting and tying together both extremes. the animal soul with the mind, savouring of the nature of both extremes. Yet it different from the illuminated intellect, the mind light and supreme portion. It differeth also from the animal soul, from the which the apostle teacheth us that we ought to separate it by the power of the word of God, saying of the word of God is lively and powerful, more penetrating than two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing of the soul and spirit. As the supreme portion never sinneth, nor consenteth to evil, but always resisteth error, and exhorteth to the best things, so the inferior portion, an animal soul, is always overwhelmed in evil, in sin, and concupiscence, and draweth to the worst things, of which St. Paul said, I see another law in my members, holding me captive to the law of sin. The mind, being the illuminated intellect, is never damned, goeth away unhurt into its original, but the spirit, the reasonable soul, singeth by nature free, and can, according to its pleasure, adhere to either of them. If it constantly adhere to the superior portion, it is at length united and beautified with it, until it be almost unto God. And if adhere into the inferior animal man, it is depraved and becomes vicious, until it be made a wicked spirit. The soul of man, being a certain divine light, created after the image of the Word, the cause of causes, and first example and substance of God. Let us now treat somewhat thereof in particular, and through what means it is joined to the body. It is a certain divine substance, individual and wholly present in every part of the body, so produced by an incorporeal author, and it descended by the power of the agent only. The soul is a substantial number, uniform, rational, conversive unto itself, for exceeding all bodies and material things, the perfection whereof is not according to the manner, nor proceeding from inferior and grosser things, but from the efficient cause. Neither is it a quantitative number, but removed from all corporal laws, where it's not divided nor multiplied by parts. Therefore the soul of man is a certain divine substance, flowing from a divine fountain, carrying along with it self-number, not that divine number by which the Creator had disposed all things, but a rational number, by which using it had a proportion to all things. It can understand all things. Soul in God, the efficient cause, is joined by competent means to this body, whence first fall in its descent it is involved in the celestial and aerial body, called the celestial vehicle or chariot of the soul. Through this middle thing, by the command of God, who is the cause of the world, it is the first infused into this middle point of the head, which is in the centre of man's body, and from there it diffuseth through all the parts and members thereof, when it joineth his chariot to the natural heat, being a spirit generated by the heart by heat. By this it plungeth itself into the humus, where it enfireth all the members, and to all these made equally to the highest, although it be diffused through one to another, and that is manifest how the immortal soul, by an immortal vehicle, is included in a glass and mortal body. But when these middle things do dissolve or fail by any disease or some accidental mischief, then doth the soul by those middle things recollect itself and floweth back into the host, which was the first receptacle of the soul. But the spirit of the heart failing, and the heat being extinct, it leaveth him, and man dieth, and the soul flieth away with his celestial vehicle. Every noble soul is said to have a fourfold operation, and that is thus: the first divine, by the image of the divine propriety; the second intellectual, by formality of participation with the intelligence; the third rational, by the perfection of its proper essential essence; the fourth animal or natural, by communion with the body of those inferior things. So that there is no work in this whole world so admirable, so excellent, so wonderful, which the soul of man, standing and not falling, cannot accomplish by its own power without any external help. Now we have in brief treated of the celestial properties of the soul of man, and the dignities thereof, and its conjunction to the body. I will now show forth the dignities of the body, how through each degree of dependency his mind ascends into the intelligible world and becomes more sublime, like unto the intelligences. The omnipotent God, in the admirable creation and composure of the world, with the diversity and distinction of all the creatures therein, and the several forms, shapes, and dispositions and natures thereof, although the least of them may in consideration follow up with wonder and astonishment perpetually, yet in his omnipotency and power who created them, they were facile and easy, for he spoke but the words, and they were made according to their time, order, and degree. But when man was made to be as Lord and ruler of all the rest, there was a conjunction of the Trinity, and consultation of the Godhead about the predicament of so excellent a creature. Let us make man according to our image, endow him with soul and body, capability and reason, giving him dominion of the fowls of the air, the fishes of the sea, and all the creatures of the earth, saith the text and words. Therefore man thus deliberately made, thus highly honoured, endure with a form so angelical, prerogatives so royal, a statue of body so ascendant, and lifted up towards heaven, a mind so great and ample, able to comprehend the heights and depths of mysteries, measuring the world in a moment, yet not containing the world. The contemplation whereof made the kingly prophet and psalmist David so provoke in his passion, Psalm 139, I will magnify thy name, O Lord, how wonderfully am I made. All the works of thy hands are wonderful, as my soul hath tasted, and knoweth right well. My mouth was not hid from thee, made up in darkness. How wonderfully was I fashioned in the womb of my mother. Thine eyes saw me, a rude and in book, which afterwards were not perfected but in many days. Behold, man is a great an animal to be honoured and adored, for the soul being converted and made like unto God, is so formed of God that it doth above all know all things by a certain contract of divinity. So the body adhering and following the image of the soul, according to the celestial faculties, being strongly armed with faith, steadfastly resolved with hope, clothed, clothed, clothed with the unspotted ornaments of love and chastity, it passeth into the nature of God, whereby he becomes God. He knows the rise of demons, and himself to know his original with them, despising the part of human nature, confidence of divinity of the soul, by which he obtains whatsoever he asketh at the hands of God, by the help of angelical ministry, and conversing with those blessed creatures. The virtues of 4 works, therefore, being drawn from the archetype himself, according to the harmony of the microcosm, being the image of the divine idea, powerfully attract the correspondence and attendance of the good angels to our assistance, compels all evil spirits to our commands and subjection, and submits all the powers of the world unto our service. Yea, all the creatures both necessarily obey us, and all the choir of heaven doth follow us, on whose office it is to execute his commands, who them according to God's decree and their duty doth manage our affairs and positions according to our desires. In the next place, before we enter to treat the proper subjects which we intend, let us take a view of some necessary directions, as contains paths to lead us to the next way, unto the truth, unto which shore is 3 guides, namely, love, hope, and faith. Love is the chariot of the soul, of all faculties of the most excellent, descending from the intelligence above, so the most inferior things it congregates and converts our mind into the divine beauty, preserves us in all our works, gives events according to our wishes, and administereth power to our supplications. Hope immovably hanging, one shows things it desireth, when it is certain and not wavering, nourisheth the mind and bringeth it to perfection. Faith, the superior virtue of all, not grounded on any human fictions, but divine revelations, wholly filleth all things true, the whole world, for seeing it descends from above, from the first light, and remains nearest to it, foremost noble and excellent than all the sciences and beliefs, arising from inferior things. By faith is man made somewhat the same with superior powers, and enjoyeth the same power with them. Faith is the root of all miracles, by which alone we approach to God, from where we obtain divine power and perfection. Wherefore all things are to be beloved, because all things are easy to God, nothing is impossible to him. Therefore nothing is incredible, and he who shall fail in his faith shall do nothing worthy admiration, but rather fear punishment and sustain loss therefore. Our mind therefore, being divine and pure, inflamed with a religious love, adorned with hope, directed by faith, placed in the height and top of the human soul, doth suddenly attract and comprehend the very truth, and behold shall the stations, ground, causes, and sciences of things, both natural and immortal, in divine truth itself, the first cause, in a certain glass of eternity. Hence it comes to pass that we through natural know those things that are above nature, and understand all things that are below. And it is not in science and arts only that the understanding challengeth to itself, show divine and celestial virtues, but also receive this miraculous power in certain things by command to be changed. So although we are framed at a natural body, yet many find no predominance over nature and cause such wonderful, sudden and difficult operations. As shall angels and spirits obey us, the stars are disordered, the heavenly powers compelled, the elements made obedient. Our intellect, therefore, if it would work any admirable thing, experiment, operation, or effort in those inferiors, must have respect to its beginning, that it may be strengthened and illustrated thereby, and receive power of acting through each degree from the first order. For it is a certain maxim and an observable rule that whosoever doth the more exactly imitate the celestial bodies, either in nature's study, action, motion, gesture, countenance, passions of the mind, and opportunity of season, is so much more like unto them, and shall receive the larger gifts and benefits from them. The reason is apparent, for the body doth not resist a most powerful soul, and perfect mind doth not change in counsel. And the rest with the description of the angels and the other spirits, that will have to wait for tomorrow. I downloaded some PDFs and I will link them in the comments. And I don't know if it is the same translation, but it is this manuscript. There are many translations of the same manuscript, and I can't read that the text is too small. But I'll leave it in the comments. And I love you all. And I was made to recite this by my heart before I was allowed to do any magic. This was the part we had to study first. And this is the part that I use always in my Enochian practice as well. So this is what we are striving for, and the connection to the angels that will become natural if you only have faith. So it is the old thing, and if you know this thing, then you can work any grimoire. But this is the basis of faith, love, hope. I love you all, and bye for now.